All right, everybody. So today we're going to do more of a fundamental video on the basics of the right hand, which I feel like get overlooked a lot. And I think we're just going to do a quick video on breaking down some of the more basic right hand techniques. And we're going to start with the most basic position, I'd say, and that is up position. Up position is really simple. Your hand is, sure enough, up, and it's going to be pretty much perpendicular to the fretboard, and we're going to use our fingers as picks to alternate strings. You've probably seen it a million times, right? So one thing that's really important is, what does our wrist look like when we're doing this? Now, if anything, I want this channel to be showing you guys things that I've done wrong and that I'm physically paying the price for as far as like bad posture and things like that while I'm playing, whether it's piano playing or bass playing or a lifelong of, grappling and sports like that have done a lot of damage to my hands and wrists, and bass playing should not be one of them. So let's talk about this real quick. Our right hand, you don't want your wrist out like this. You don't want that little T-Rex arm. It's not going to do you any good in the long term. And actually in the short term, it actually doesn't even really, doesn't give you a lot of control because your fingers are already locked. So to prevent this, I kind of put my forearm on the outside, right past this contour here. That seems to take a lot of pressure off the wrist. So your wrist isn't doing this really sharp angle here. So it's a little flatter, and that's good. So anyway, so one thing you want to do is really get used to alternating your fingers throughout the strings. So we're going to just do pointer, middle finger. We're going to go down to A string, D, and G, bring it back. You can do this all the time. Do this on your steering wheel. Do this on your desk. I said this last video. Just do this on everything. It's these hours not playing bass, working on these techniques that on the time you do play bass, you'll be surprised how much better you get and how quickly you'll get there. So also work on one string per finger. Pointer on E, middle on A, pointer on D, middle on G. Work on that as well. So what does up position sound like? Well, it sounds like probably all the bass lines you really like. That's up position. It's probably the majority of the bass playing you listen to, maybe outside of like picking or something like that. Cool. Up position. Really simple, really important. Really work on that wrist not being at a sharp angle. Set yourself up for the long run. Next position is down position. Probably the most versatile as far as tonal options. And so this is up position. This is down position. So now your hand, instead of being perpendicular to the fretboard, is now parallel with the fretboard. We're going to be using this hard part on the outside of your thumb, right where that tendon is, where there's really no tissue between the skin and the tendon itself. We're going to use that as a pick. A lot of people use the entire side of their thumb. That's fine too. I'm just telling you what I do. And we're going to use it as a pick throughout the strings. We're going to reserve our pointer and middle finger again for the last two strings. And what's great about this technique too, and why probably most people use it, is for using your palm as a mute or a dampener right on the bridge. The fat of your palm is going to sit right there. It's going to give you dead notes. And it's really nice and can get a really cool Motown vibe when you're playing through certain techniques. So make sure you're comfortable using your thumb on all strings as like a pick, but get used to using your pointer and middle finger for the higher strings too. So when you're using chords and such like that, that option will be available to you, and I'll show you what that looks like as well. So, you know what, for people who want to actually see an example of this, look at a lot of the stuff Pino Polendino was doing for a lot of D'Angelo stuff and some of the John Mayer Trio stuff. You'll see him anytime his hands like this in the back, that's down position. I think he's probably one of the masters of it. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be playing with this technique as much as I am. So definitely check all his stuff out. He's one of the best. Anyway, so let's listen to what that can sound like while using my palm as a mute. Kind of like, I don't want to say Motown, but definitely a muted vibe, a lot of control. You don't have to use your palm there though. You can just use it if you want to start plucking chords. Very versatile. Plucking chords, getting a cool picking vibe, using the palm as a mute. A lot of versatility in this position. Get used to it. Get used to just playing through really simple chords on the fretboard using that position. Just find chords on a normal bass chord sheet. There's a million resources online, but just take a 1-5-8, something we all know, right? Power chord. Just get used to using your hand like this to kind of pluck these chords like a guitar player would. I like the 9 chord, the 1-5-9. I can only imagine if previous band members ever saw this video, they wouldn't be the least bit surprised that I'm teaching bass 9 chords on YouTube. I just think that's funny. But anyway, down position, get used to it. Pino Palladino is a good reference for this. We're going to move on to slap and pop. I did a previous video on a slap lick. Somebody in the comment field brought up specifically like, hey, let's focus on that, just the thumb, making good contact and stuff like that. Great, I love it. Let's talk about just slapping and popping, real basic. If you guys want a more detailed video, I could do that too. But here's how that goes. Again, using that same part, we are going to slap the string. We are not necessarily bouncing off the string. You'll see Flea, guys like do that, kind of bounce it. That is a theatrical thing and a showmanship thing. That isn't necessarily a musical thing. When you bounce, that's a lot of space. I got to bring my thumb back. It's not very economical with our space and our time. Have it nice and controlled. Again, we want to be kind of perpendicular to this fretboard, but there's a lot of pressure on the wrist. So unless you play your bass really, really high, if you're resting on your knee or you play it with a little bit lower, it's going to be a little bit of pressure. It's okay to have a little bit of an angle, not that big of a deal. We want it a little more controlled. We're going to be hitting it right where that string meets the fretboard. Definitely get used to slapping on all strings. I'm just going to mute with my left hand. Cool. Just really get used to not just slapping, but bringing your thumb back to a place where you can replicate that sound easily. Cool. Practice with the metronome. I personally don't. I practice with like backing tracks, and we could talk about loop libraries at a later video and why they're so important to use, maybe even more so than a metronome. I think a lot of people won't like hearing that, but that's the truth as far as the bass players go. Anyway, so slapping. Really basic. A lot of guys are going to be slapping mostly on the E and A string, and they're going to be using popping for the D and the G string. A lot of guys are going to be using just their pointer finger for the D string and their middle finger for the G string. Sometimes I only use my pointer finger. It's a bad habit. Don't do that. I'll show you why. In case you want to get into using chords, again, it's going to be nice to have both of these as an option. So what is a pop really? Pop is essentially, again, we're not going to just pull the string off. We want to be very economical with that space. We're going to just put our finger in underneath the string, and we're going to what we call a rake. We're going to roll our finger out. Now, one thing to think about too, and this really helped me, is thinking of a slap as your kick drum and your pop as a snare drum, especially when we're working in 4/4. And think about it as far as making beats. Make sure you're getting used to doing this on the A and the G string as well. Again, so back to the beat thing. Let's just do like kind of a almost like a 4 on the floor, and our snares on 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, notice how even I'm doing it. I'm using the pointer finger on the G string. That's just habit. Maybe get used to using just your middle finger on the G string. guys get it. All right. So again, why do we really want to use this? In case we're using chords. For that, it's nice to have both of those available. Really basic, a little sloppy too, I think, because I'm probably sitting way too low, and we'll talk about posture in another video too. But I just kind of want to switch it up in the room. So that's slap and popping in a nutshell. Really basic techniques. So we went over up position. We went over down position. We went over slap. Really simple stuff. So if you like it, like and subscribe. Obviously, I'm open to any and all feedback. Reach out to me at cody.cook on Instagram. And if there's anything specific you want to see, let me know. I'm happy to dive in deeper into any of this stuff. I'm still definitely working out what this channel is going to be. Definitely a lot of bass tutorials, a lot of piano tutorials, a lot of like scoring tutorials on how to write music to like a visual medium. I'm definitely going to get a lot more people on the channel, and as far as like talking about their creative process or what they do well. I live here in Austin, Texas, which is an awesome musical community with a lot of amazing people, and I plan on kind of sharing their stories and what they're all about on the channel too. I already have 4 people lined up, all of which are from completely different walks of life, and I think all of them are going to be able to share some really cool information and maybe open you up to some maybe some music or some techniques that you may not have been privy to. So I think we're going to be doing some cool stuff here. Anyway, thank you so much. Like and subscribe again, and take care.